What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Wednesday, June 21st, 2023. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host, Phil. Phil, I don't know if you even started packing yet, but in like 24 hours from now, we're going on another company retreat, plus significant others, plus a few other stragglers along with us.
But this time, it won't affect recording like it has in the past.
Very true.
Oh, other than
It's
that,
a lot less stressful.
Pretty excited though to get away. I mean, now that we have a championship in hand, for the podcast, so we got that under our belts, and now we're gonna go celebrate it ourselves as well because we worked really hard for that championship as well.
We did. We did so much preparation. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into it, but we walked out the other end with the trophy in hand, and we're happy to be about it. So if you want to join along with us on our company retreat, even though you're not invited, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Buffalo Sports Collective and on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com and look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. Yes, that is back because, Phil, we're talking Bills on this show, and I think it would be a disservice to us if we didn't mention this one because I don't think we're going to dive too deeply into this. I think with the way the show's going to be, it's going to be bits and pieces of Bills and Sabres moving forward. We don't want to exclude them completely, but it's the main show is going to be about the Bandits. But, I mean, I think with let me ask you this. When you were sick as a young kid and you had to stay home, what did you watch on TV?
I did not have cable growing up, so the main thing I watched, I think it was around, you had to wait until 10 or 11 a.m. I want to say it was 11 a.m.
Wheel of Fortune?
Price is Right came on.
Price is Right. Yes, that's 11 o'clock. Yep.
So I had the Price is Right, and then soap operas that I didn't understand whatsoever, and then you kind of waited until after school hours, and that's when all the normal shows that you see after school come on that you actually understand, but I didn't really get a lot of solid daytime television. It was pretty much Price is Right and maybe a solid VHS if you could throw one in.
Well, I'm glad you brought up soap operas. My mom was a big, I think it was called Days of Our Lives. Is that a soap opera?
That is one of them, yes.
Okay, yeah. She was a big Days of Our Lives fan. I don't know if she still is. Moved out 6 years ago. I have no idea what she watches on TV now. But I think soap opera is a good wording for what happened at Mandatory Bills Camp. And we're not going to go into the why it all happened. We're just going to kind of go over our thoughts on the whole thing. Diggs didn't show up to the practice on that Tuesday, I believe it was. He was there for the physical on Monday. He was there to start on Tuesday, apparently. And then both sides, McDermott and whoever else was in there with Diggs, kind of agreed that we were going to take some time apart. And then Diggs went home. And then Sean McDermott went to a press conference and said he was very concerned why Stefon Diggs wasn't there. And then Diggs showed up Wednesday like nothing happened. I guess I'll ask your thoughts first because I don't think I ever got your full thoughts on what you thought of the whole situation.
It seems questionable. I mean, kind of what everyone's saying. Why would McDermott say it's very concerning and then the next day walk that back completely and have absolutely no problem with anything? So that, I think, is alarming in a weird way. Just why one day within 24 hours you're going from very concerning to I think we're in a really good place. I think, there's mutual respect. There's an understanding between everyone and we're good. How do you go from very concerning to perfectly fine within 24 hours? So either McDermott said he was very concerned and he meant something else and was wrong and they're actually okay, or he actually is concerned, but to kind of save face to the media and everything kind of outside of what we can see, he, walked it back and said they're fine and Diggs showed up. So I don't know. I think that part's really weird and strange how that kind of all went down. I think if McDermott originally said, exactly what he said on day 2, where, we were going through some things. It's what we do as an organization. It's fine. It's not a big deal. We talk about it and here he is ready to play and we think we're okay. If he said something like, we had a big discussion. We excused him from today's practice. It's not a big deal, and he'll be here tomorrow. Anything a little bit more positive than very concerned. I think you would have no one caring whatsoever about this whole situation, but because he happened to mention that he was very concerned and the next day he's fine, I think it's a really weird situation. But overall, as a whole moving forward, as as the season eventually gets here, am I concerned about Diggs on the Bills roster? No, I think he's fine. He'll show up to play like he always does. He's an extreme competitor. He's a good teammate. He's a good player. He'll be out there. He'll, put up insane numbers, and they'll have a great season. But so I don't know. I mean, the grand scheme of things, I don't think this is really much of anything other than, I'm kind of happy Diggs is allowed to be upset and say what he wants to say to the organization and to the coaches behind closed doors. Again, I think McDermott either accidentally or on purpose blew this up. Again, I don't know why he would say he's very concerned and then be fine, so I'm just not sure why it blew up in that way. Either he is concerned or he's not, but I think in the grand scheme of things, Diggs will be there on game day and play fine and everything will be okay.
Yeah, I think it was a bad flub on his end. It just fanned a fire that wasn't really there. And
right.
I don't know if I ever said it on here, but I said it in our chats and I said it to whoever was really listening, that I thought this whole Stefon Diggs drama with the organization and Allen or whatever it is was a bit overblown. And then I had to eat my own words on Tuesday when he wasn't there at practice. And I went, oh, man, this is bigger than it was. And then it was reported that he was there and he was sent home. And then the whole it blew up more than it had to. And then the organization was mad that it did blow up. But you kind of blew it up in your own face. I get Stefon Diggs' anger. He's a super ultra competitive person. He wants to be super involved in the offense. There's times where we even on the show went, why is Diggs got like 6 targets and then the whole second half and he didn't get 1? The Cincinnati game was an embarrassment. They lost to the Jets last year. I think it's just it was a fan of a fire that was already smoldering that didn't have to be there. I just don't understand that if this was an actual issue, why it wasn't taken care of in the 4 months leading up to June. Why did it have to go right up through here where he kind of was excused from the first practice? I don't know what the whole thing was about. It sounds like from everybody in the local media who's actually plugged into the team, if you're not listening to the national media who's just throwing stuff at the wall and clickbaits and stuff, try to get people to listen. It sounds like it's more about the direction of the organization or the play calling or something within the actual play style that they're doing. It seems to be his frustration. My thing, though, is the fans, Phil. And I tend to, and I try to fight against this in my own mind, but because I know it's the minority of the fans. He missed 1 practice, and people were ready to cut him loose. Like, why is this? And I don't know if it's everywhere in sports. I don't know if it's in other cities. Why? I'm just going to talk to Buffalo. Why do we always blame the best players and want to cut bait all the time? He's not moving anywhere. They can't afford it. Next year, I think it's like $31 million against the cap, a dead cap hit for him not to play for your team. This year, I think it's like $13 million. They did it with the Bandits this year, with Dane Smith and Johnny Tavares and, my God, Mad Vince. Then with Bills, Diggs, Miller, Allen, all of them. Sean McDermott, Sabres, it was Jack, it was Sam, all of them. Why is it the star players you always want to cut bait when one thing happened? And the other thing, I get that Diggs isn't there to do his job. And a lot of people are going, he's making millions of dollars. He should be there. If it happened to me and I was on the job, and I didn't show up, I would be fired. Guess what? He's not you. He doesn't work a 9 to 5 like a normal person does. He's an NFL star player that's there for entertainment. It's a completely different situation. I think as a collective of fans, we need to take a deep breath when this stuff happens. It was 1 practice in June, and he was excused from it. Let all the stuff come out before you start, phoning into radio stations and Twitter and all that kind of stuff and just, bashing a guy for being passionate and wanting to win a Super Bowl.
It's also the thing that they never have a plan to lose that player. I mean, like, again, you talk about the Bandits losing a Smith, a JT, a Vince,
right,
Vince especially, and then even this, like, the Bills without Diggs would be nothing on offense.
Yeah, what's
like,
your plan?
Your offense would be in a lot of trouble really, really quick. So it's one of those situations where, again, like you just said, they bash a player for missing 1 game when realistically, if you're the Bills organization, obviously you can't put up with stuff like that if it happened, multiple times. Like, obviously, this situation is a little different because it seems like he was there and excused by the team, so it's perfectly fine. But we'll say that he was one of these players, like, I don't know, a Zeke for a while who was sitting out, or any of these players who sit out with, contract things or don't want to sign their...
Jacobs, Saquon Barkley.
Right. They don't want to sign their franchise tag. Like, realistically, if Diggs was going to sit out all the mandatory minicamp, obviously as the Bills organization, you can't really allow that, so you have to put your foot down because you just don't want that kind of track record. But at the same time, you can't lose a player like Diggs. Like, you have no one to replace him, so the Bills would have to, punish him in some form or way, but at the same time, you need him, and he knows that, and the Bills know that, so yes, you want to, put your foot down and, kind of just say, oh, we can't allow players to get away with this. We have rules and team rules and everything like that for a reason, but at the same time, he's not going anywhere, like you said. Like, I mean, he's going to be there, even if he did miss one or two or all of mandatory minicamp. I'm sure they can fine him a little bit, but in the reality and grand scheme of things, he's going to be on the roster because the Bills and he know that you're not the same team without him. So these fans that immediately want to cut bait with some of these players, A, it's not financially responsible for the team whatsoever, like you mentioned with cap space, and B, you just have no one to replace him. I mean, you go back to the Buffalo Bandits and Matt Vince and everyone who wanted to get rid of him because he has one or two bad games the entire year, and after those bad games, like, oh, we got to get rid of him, he's terrible, and there's no backup plan. Like, Vince is going to likely go down as the greatest goalie in NLL history and proved it again finally in the championship for the Bandits. But I mean, just the people that want to cut bait with him so quickly with no backup plan. I mean, Shanahan will probably be an okay goalie and a decent fill-in, but Matt Vince is on a completely different level as a NLL goalie, and again, arguably the greatest of all time, and he's on your team, and you're ready to get rid of him after one or two bad games that he lets in one or two soft goals that I'm sure he is just as upset, if not way, way more upset with himself than you ever will be with him. So it's just those weird situations where, I mean, same with, we definitely don't have to get into the massive Sabres, Jack and Sam and organization and all that. We're kind of finally moving past it and seeing some kind of light and hope with the Sabres team with new GM, new head coach. Things seem to be going in a positive direction, so I don't really want to dig all that back up. But same thing, just, you have star players like Jack, who was supposed to be here to save the team. I understand there's a ton of pressure on a player like that, or even Allen, if you want to throw it back at the Bills, and he doesn't have a Super Bowl yet, and obviously he's playing extremely well, and people want to, throw it all on him, and that's it, or McDermott, like you were mentioning, but they're still at the very top of their game, and they're not going anywhere, and you're not going to lose them just because they do one or two human things. I mean, they are humans. I mean, even these people that say, like, oh, I'd be fired at my job. I'm sure you take a sick day here or there. It happens. I mean, your 9 to 5 likely doesn't have a mandatory day that you have to be there no matter what. If you didn't show up to this day, you'd be fired. I mean, I'm sure you take a sick day or a vacation day here or there, and you're going right back there afterwards. So, like you said, I think it just all gets kind of blown way out of proportion in the long grand scheme of things. He's going to be here, and hopefully, honestly, as a kind of analyst a little bit, from what we saw last year as the Bills offense, I hope whatever he said to the organization or to the coaching staff kind of gets through, because even you and I would love to see some offensive changes, and if he can kind of, as a player on the team, get through to them to make some changes as well, I think it would honestly be really helpful, because that offense could use some help and some different looks this year. So hopefully he said some positive things in oh my gosh, why am I blanking on the word?
Constructive criticism.
There it is. That's what I was saying. I literally just was talking about that earlier today at work and couldn't think of it now. But yes, hopefully he had some constructive criticism for this offense, because I think you and I would both agree that it could use it. So hopefully he said some positive things that they can kind of move forward and take his ideas and work them in, because the offense could use a little bit of help after what we saw from last year.
Yeah, in short, fans, if you're going to have an opinion, that's perfectly fine. Just have a logical one of, hey, we got to cut bait with Diggs, trade him. Whoa, who are you going to replace him with? Just have that, and your opinion will go a lot further than just saying you got to cut bait because he's not a team player. Secondly, I think you brought it up right at the end there, and then we can move on to the Bandits here. Who's to say he wasn't in the right? Like, maybe everything that he was saying to the coaching staff was dead on and exactly what the fan base is saying, but we'll never know those conversations. Everybody was putting the blame on Stefan Diggs for being selfish or whatnot about, missing that practice. What if he was right? Like, you saw the anger on the sidelines with Josh Allen and, everything that went off the field and Josh Allen, rumors and all that kind of stuff. We're not getting into that, but, what if he was right about like his anger with Josh Allen, his anger with Ken Dorsey, and his anger with Sean McDermott? What, just think that, there's two sides to every story. He might be in the right here, but we'll move on here. I just wanted to talk about the Diggs part there because the reaction from some of the fans was just, it made me bang my head against the wall. But Phil, we'll move over to the NLL and the Bandits here. The parade was last Thursday. They marched down the street over to the Bisons game. Dane Smith sailed one over top of the catchers for his first pitch. You went to the festivities downtown. You went to the Bisons game. Let's get a quick, 2-minute Phil perspective on everything that went down downtown for the championship party.
I thought they handled it really well. It was kind of the similar party to the plaza that you see before playoff games where you had food available. They had some of the merchandise available outside. You had all the fans in the, plaza there. You had the music going on, but it was really nice to see them just kind of recognize the entire team again, everyone who made it. I think there were only 2 players missing. I think Bomberry and Spanger or Sweeting. I think it was Sweeting.
Sweeting. Yeah, I think it was those 2.
I think it was just those 2 missing, and they, Swenny called them all up by name like he normally would if he was, calling the intro lineup to a game. So it was really nice just to see them kind of do it that way where the whole team gets recognized once again, and then he talked to a lot of the players about, just random how the offseason's going or just, what it meant to bring a championship to this team. It was cool to see them talk to each player and talk to Johnny and talk to some of these other just organizational guys and some of the things they did. So it was a really nice way that they were able to recognize the team once again and then let the team kind of be the team. I mean, they were having a ridiculous amount of fun. I'm sure you saw most of it online. I mean, when Dane Smith pulled his phone out for his best man speech to the team and had his very long, I thought he was doing it as a joke at first, and then he just started reading his entire essay to the fans and to the organization from his phone. I was like, oh, he's actually doing this. All right. But so he did that, and that was kind of fun seeing him, take a shot and then get the energy and courage to read his long essay toward the team. And then the parade itself was really fun. I mean, obviously it was a little bit short, but it was really cool to see. It's something that we haven't been a part of at all as a, city. We haven't won a championship in 15 years. I wasn't part of whatever they did back in the day. So it was really cool to see, even if it was a smaller parade. I mean, a lot of people, but it wasn't obviously going all that far just down the street, but it was still really cool to see it blocked off and see all the players and coaches up on the fire trucks and having a grand time and getting to walk with the fans and interact with the fans and really just take a moment to celebrate the championship. And then over at the Bisons game, they did some kind of fun stuff with honoring the team. They had him out on the field for a little bit. Like you said, Dane sailed his pitch way over the catcher's head. I think the catcher almost caught it or blocked it. I don't remember. It was close. But it was a high pitch. He had a little too much heat on it, but then they showed a few videos throughout the game, and they did a very similar intro to what the Bandits games do. They had the bagpipes going. They had racks there, and it was cool to see. And then some of the intermission stuff in between innings, they had some of the players out there doing some of the competitions and things, and they were having a heck of a good time. So it was overall, I thought, really well done to just let the fans honor the team and let the city honor the team as well, and just really give them a nice little championship day. And it was fun to see the way the players interacted with the fans, and fans got a moment to kind of thank and be with that team and be in very close proximity, obviously, and kind of cheer with them. I mean, you see it on the field when they won the championship, but obviously they're behind glass, so yes, you're cheering with them, but it's a little bit different. Whereas this, they were, right in front of you, having a lot of fun. Just, you felt a part of their celebration for the championship and just kind of being a little bit more celebrating with them, not celebrating at them. So I think it was a really good moment to kind of have. And then the store had a lot of the championship gear available as well, so that was nice to see that people who wanted it, pretty much everything. I think there was only one shirt that ran out of larges, and I did want that shirt, but that's all right. They said it's coming back in stock in like a week, so that's okay. But for the most part, everything was pretty well stocked as far as, there wasn't only 2 hats that you could get, and then, those 2 people that got it, it was out. It was pretty well stocked for whatever Bandits merchandise you wanted as well. So overall, I thought they did a really good job, and it was really fun to celebrate with the team.
Yeah, I think I saw that the number was around 4,000 fans showed up, and I don't know how many season ticket holders there are, but to see a sport like lacrosse in Buffalo get that kind of reception for a championship parade, championship party, that's just unbelievable, and it speaks volumes of the dedication Buffalo has to Buffalo Bandits and the lacrosse and NLL and growing the sport here in Buffalo. And again, we cover the team, we're fans of the team, but I tried to separate my fandom when I'm on this show for the most part. I mean, you still root for him to win and all that kind of stuff, but I leave my, craziness fans to when I'm actually in the stands and watching the sport and watching the team on the TV and all that stuff. But I don't think, and I'm trying to take off my biased hat here, I don't think you're going to get this kind of reception and that kind of dedication to an event like this any other NLL city, any other lacrosse city. I mean, Albany is pretty big with box lacrosse or field lacrosse, but they have college. I mean, they get the PLL that comes there once a year. Colorado's pretty good. Toronto's pretty good when they're back at home in Toronto. I mean, there's a handful of teams. Calgary, if you want to throw those out there. Halifax is pretty crazy. There's not really any fan base that rivals Buffalo. And I think you saw that on Thursday night with the what was amazing. I didn't expect an actual parade and players on fire trucks and stuff leading down the field. The vantage points of the players' videos of just looking behind the fire trucks and seeing this just wave of Bandits fans, that was chilling. That was awesome. So, Phil, love the perspective of you who were down in the thick of it down there, loving all of it. Saw a bunch of videos. It looked awesome, and I'll try to be down there next year when they repeat. But Phil, for the first full off season, we have Commissioner Brett Frood is in charge. He gets his full first off season because he came on, I think, the end of September, beginning of September, something like that last year. He didn't have a full work slate, a full bulletin board of stuff he wants to do. He has said he has a lot of plans he wants to do and to get done this off season, but he has not made those known to the general public. So today, Phil and I are going to be playing Commissioner for the day, and we have top 5 plans that we will get done in one day for the NLL. There could be changes, there could be improvements, there could be just new things we want to throw out there. It could be something that we've been complaining about for the 2+ years we've been doing this show. So Phil, we'll start at number 5 and work our way down to our top priority, number 1, numero uno thing we want to change with the NLL, and we'll just go 5, 5, 4, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2, and then finish with 1. Phil, do you want to start first, or you want me to bring out my first one first?
I feel like ours are going to be similar but different. I don't know if we'll actually cross over too much. I feel like we have, again, similar but different ideas, which is probably good because we could give them 10 potential options. But I'll let you kick off number 5.
Okay, 5. I think it's a pretty obvious one. Bring more money into this sport. And Brett Frood is coming from NASCAR. So if I'm Brett Frood right now, I'm coming from NASCAR. I was in charge of multi-million-dollar industry over there. Ads are massive over there. The money that the ads generate for NASCAR is behemoth. I can actually see moving forward, and I think a lot of people who are a fan of the jerseys right now, I would gobble them up now because I can honestly see ads going on these jerseys similar to what you see with soccer. I can see, Pepsi going on one of the shoulders, or, Kaleida Health on the back or something like that. I can see the jerseys kind of twisting a bit and going towards more of the soccer style, or if you want to see like NASCAR where they have them all over the cars. I think generating more money will help solidify some of the struggling teams, and you can kind of put more effort into, bringing more health to those teams, like the New York who struggles to sell it, Albany who struggles to sell it, but I think they were struggling to sell it because their team was so bad this year. I think the more money that this sport generates through, marketing and ads and stuff like that, you're going to see the sport grow in leaps and bounds more than we've seen in the past 30, 32 years.
Yeah, I think that's like the biggest struggle, not only money-wise, is like you just kind of mentioned, is attendance, and that's one of mine that I guess we can kind of link into it, even though I didn't really plan to right now. But yeah, building attendance, and I think it's not only building attendance, but it's building those extremely loyal fan bases and trying to find out where those are. I think Albany, like you said, has a very big outdoor game. So, having an indoor team there seems to make sense. At some point, hopefully they turn it around without getting too good, because we play them quite often. So I don't want them to get, really take off. But as a team, I hope they get a little bit better so their fan base can grow a little bit more. But it's about trying to find those fan bases and that attendance, that it's no matter how the team's doing, you have that diehard core of, like you just mentioned for the parade, 4,000 or 5,000, 6,000 people that no matter how the team's playing, they're always going to be there. And I think that's really hard to find right now in the NLL. I mean, like you said, there's the bigger teams that, like Colorado, Calgary. I mean, I think Calgary last year struggled as a team, and I think their attendance was probably fine. Colorado struggled most of this year. Attendance was fine, and then made it to the championship. So it's just about finding those areas that you can really build. I mean, New York has struggled a few times now, and now their team isn't very good again. I mean, they have arguably one of, if not the best player in the entire league on their team, and yet, the fan base and attendance and the wins just aren't really there yet. And obviously, we've said it with pretty much every sport, anywhere, winning, with winning comes fans and comes, people and attendance. And so I think a lot of it comes down to that, like you mentioned, with some of these struggling teams, attendance-wise, are also struggling to win, and no one really wants to go see a losing team, so that makes it a little bit tougher. But I think it's just trying to find a way that even if those teams are losing, still putting a entertaining game out there, whether it's with giveaways, obviously we both believe that the on-field product, even if you lose, is still exciting to watch. It's still a lot of fun, so it's about trying to find ways to get those fans in consistently, again, like the Bisons do with all their giveaways and all their kind of theme nights and things. Like, it's just trying to get extra creative for those teams that are struggling with attendance. How do we get more people in the arena consistently, whether they're winning or losing, until those teams can kind of finally take that step and get some winning teams in there. And then obviously attendance kind of builds and grows as the team does a little bit better.
Was that your number 5, Phil, or did you pull that one from further up?
It was a little further up. To me, that's one of the biggest things this entire organization needs to work on. And I think that is going to be, like you mentioned with money, as far as sponsors go and things like that, and ad revenue, that's obviously a humongous part of it. But so is ticket sales, and building just a consistent attendance base is something that, as a fan, and even for you and me, who have only been covering it for a couple of years, in detail, but it's something that we've kept a loose eye on for a really long time. And you kind of see these organizations come and go every once in a while because it's really hard for them to stay strong and just have that attendance to kind of stay in that city. And it's a tough thing to build, but hopefully it's something they can continue to work on. But it seems to be one of the bigger struggling points as the organization goes. And I don't know how worried you were during COVID, but I was extremely worried for this league and just in general after the kind of canceled season, if they were going to be able to come back at all, with how, we understand it's not a very big league. I think it's one of the bigger small leagues that is out there. And I think that makes it, a little bit more firm holding. But I think through COVID, with the canceled, half season, I was very worried that the NLL might not make it as a sport and might have to fold simply because you took so much time off, and, were you going to be able to recover from that? And it's great to see that not only were they able to recover, but it seems like attendance was back up again this year. So really good to see that they were able to come back. But just the fact that you even have to kind of worry about that at all is concerning. And I think building attendance is going to be one of the things that is probably at the top of Fru's list, maybe not just this offseason, but moving forward.
Yeah, and based on his background, I think that's a big reason he was the one that was brought in to kind of lead the ship here, is he has that pedigree of generating a ton of marketing and money. And once you have that money, it's easier to market the sport and market the players. So I think that's his top priority in my opinion. But that's not my number 5. My number 4 here, fellas, bring back the All-Star game. This league needs to market their players and their stars better. So I think what better way than to bring back the game that will spotlight all the top talent in the league. Have, every team represented so the fans from all over the country can watch it. It doesn't have to have any ramifications on the regular season or the playoffs like baseball does, where the winner of the All-Star games gets home field advantage or any of that kind of stuff. I don't care about that. It's just more getting fans to watch some of these players that they typically wouldn't watch. If, you can travel it city to city. So, year 1, bring it to Buffalo. Year 2, send it out to Colorado. Year 3, bring it to Halifax, and so on and so forth. But like the West Coast guys, the West Coasters don't really watch Josh or Dane or Lyle or Teat because, they're, the Eastern Conference isn't as important to the Western Conference, similar to like when we're breaking it down. Yes, we know all the Western Coast teams, but we don't follow them as closely as the East Coast teams because the games don't matter as much. For the East Coast, you don't see, Christian Del Bianco. You don't see the Couriers. You don't see Ryan Lees. You don't see all those top tier talents out on the West Coast. The San Diego Seals were one of the best teams in the league right now. Yes, they got bounced in round 1, but the offense was ridiculous. And unless you were staying up till 10:30 or watching the game the next day, you weren't really seeing them. So I think bringing back the All-Star game, having a player from each sport represented on those teams will, if you're a fan of the New York's teams, you can watch the sport, watch Jeff Teat, but also learn and see some of the stars from around the league. And that's how I think you're going to grow the sport and grow the players and market it better. So when it comes time for sponsorship deals and marketing deals, you can market these stars of the game and just show how much skill they have.
Yeah, I also had All-Star Game on my list.
Woo.
I thought that might have been one of our crossovers. I mean, my All-Star jersey from the very last All-Star game that I wear at every single Bandits game is still in quite good shape, and I'm a little bit surprised because most of the times I kind of forget when that jersey was from, and then I look down at it and it says, I don't even know, it's behind me. Hang on. 2012 was the last All-Star game in Buffalo, and I can't believe that my jersey that I wear is over 11 years old because it is in remarkably good condition. So proud of myself. I mean, realistically, I'm only wearing it like 9, 10 this year, last couple of years, actually, 11, 12, 13, 14 times with the playoffs and championships. So, I mean, it's getting some use, but yeah, it's still in ridiculously good shape. So proud of whoever made this jersey way back in the day. They did a great job. I have Johnny's All-Star jersey. But yeah, I completely agree that the All-Star game, especially with the way lacrosse is. I mean, you have baseball and the home run derby, and you have, I think lacrosse.
A whole weekend of this.
Right, and it gets the comparison to the NHL a lot with just the style of game that lacrosse is. It's that hard hitting, but also a lot of talent, a lot of skill. And I think there's so much you can do with an all-star game with lacrosse and just the amount of, again, skill and talent that is out there, the trick shots you could come up with. I mean, the accuracy is all there. The speed is all there. Like all the things that the NHL does that, all their skills challenges, you could also do for the most part for lacrosse, with some other, goofy fun ones to throw in there to, kind of bring all the fans in. And I think it's something that'd be really cool to, like you mentioned, not only bring the game to other people as far as, who are the top players around the entire league, West Coast, East Coast, whoever, getting a chance to see them up close or even on TV and just even letting the players kind of have fun. And it's something that we've said about this league a lot, and it's something that the fans seem to love about this league, is that a lot of these guys have second jobs, and you could really see their personalities come out with this championship for the Bandits and just kind of seeing them knock back 1 or 2 or 20 to 30, beers and just having a really great time and just really letting their personalities show out and just really, they're just your average kind of person, and they just feel like they're more one of you than they are some, glorified making millions athlete. They just seem like they're your everyday typical person who has a job and also happens to be really good at lacrosse. So I think that would show through really well in an all-star game where all those guys are together. They're not in a truly competitive kind of format. Like you said, maybe have a 2-day event where one day's a skills challenge where all these players are just out there having a good time, showing each other up, but more in a fun way and just kind of kicking back and just being your everyday person that all these fans can kind of relate to, and then have a little bit more of a, obviously you don't want to get anyone injured, so more intense but not intense, game between the West and the East, and just kind of have fun and show off what these players can do and what they're made of. And I'm sure an all-star game would start to mean more if it happened every single year, even to the players. I mean, how much we see that these players get invited to Pro Bowls and kind of all-star games for the MLB, and what it means to some of these, players as far as just getting that opportunity to play in an all-star game and what it means to them. So I'm sure if you had a all-star game every single year, it would start to kind of pull that meaning back as far as, getting a chance to play and represent your team at the all-star game for these players as well. And it would also just be a great thing for the fans. So I am 100% in on bringing the all-star game back. I really don't think that's something that would be all that difficult either. I think, yes, you have to kind of organize it and put it all together, but I don't think that's something that is, otherworldly, that would be just ridiculous and is like a really hard thing to ask. Whereas, maybe attendance might be a lot harder to ask for rather than an all-star game. I think an all-star game to me should be something that they can bring in the next couple of years and bring it back. And I really hope they do.
So, Phil, my number 3, and I think this is one that we're probably going to disagree on just based on conversations I've had with you in the past. I would like to go back to the 1 week before playoff, or in between playoff games, move the season up a week or two, eliminate some bye weeks. I get the appeal of it, and some people, like you even said, think the old playoff system is a bit too long. And I get it, but if you look at other sports, hockey and basketball are 2.5 months long. I think it would help attendance. I think it would help with scheduling, and I think it would help with keeping players healthier because you're not playing back-to-back games. You're not playing 2 games in 3 nights. I think you're not seeing what we saw with the finals where we don't know if game 1 or 2 is going to be at home. We don't know if game 1 or 2, when game 2 is going to happen. We don't know when game 1 is going to happen. And I think that hurt some of the attendance in game 1 in Buffalo. So I think going back to 1 week in between, yes, it might be a bit longer, but I'm in full support of it, and I think the players would be too.
I think that's something that, again, was on my list, but something like kind of adjacency, that's not the word I'm looking for, but kind of just also go along with this. And it's something that I don't think he really has much control over as far as something that Brett Fruit can really do per se. But I hope at some point, like you kind of were just mentioning, and I'll tie it into the regular season as well with the bye weeks, is just kind of getting the NLL to be a little bit more of a priority in some of these buildings, whereas I know the NBA, things like that, you're never going to be a priority over. That is a massive organization. I completely understand that, but not being a priority over, was it the AHL playoffs? Like, as the NLL, you should be higher than the AHL playoffs. So being kind of pushed around by an organization like that, I understand the AHL is much bigger. I mean, it has a lot more teams. It's been a little bit more established. I understand that, but it is a small league. It is a, startup league to the NHL. So I think the, NLL, that is a truly professional league and is at the highest of its level, should be a little bit higher and should have more pull than the AHL. So I think one of the big things this offseason as well, or just in general, but again, I don't know how much control he's going to be able to have over it, but would be getting priority in these buildings so you don't have these ridiculously long, take a month off of lacrosse because that's how the schedule works, because we can't get anyone in these buildings because, there's 3 concerts at this one arena and the NLL is at the lowest priority. So this team has to take 3 weeks off. I mean, Toronto didn't even have, was it a week? They got a bye week before playoffs.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's just other times where we see the NLL schedule come out and you're looking at it and we started games in December and then you don't play until, January all of a sudden. I think they had 2 games, then took like 3 weeks off. And you're like, okay, well, why did we start the season just to have a month off and then get back at it? It's just the scheduling in general is just weird, and I think something that needs to be looked at. But again, I think it comes down to needing priority in these buildings, and I think that comes down to a lot of other things we're talking about with attendance and money, and everything kind of builds off of each other. But I think if they can even, I understand that most of these teams have contracts that you're not going to be able to get out of, but at some point, if they can find a way to get maybe some of these smaller teams, and I don't know if this might hurt the team as a whole. So, I mean, maybe it's not the best idea, but getting some of these smaller teams that don't have the highest attendance consistency, maybe getting them in smaller arenas where they are the number one team in that arena so you can do whatever you want. But I don't know if like location would go along with that. I mean, I know here we have a lot of different arenas and areas you could play if you wanted to, but other cities might not have that, where they might just have the NHL arena in that area, and that's going to be the closest and best you get. But I think, kind of like you're saying, I think scheduling is a big part of it. And to me, that's kind of where playoffs come in as well, is just like, if you can start the season a little bit more consistently and not have so many bye weeks, and you can get to playoffs a lot sooner, then I don't think it seems as long of a season. And then I don't mind going necessarily back to what you like. And even in playoffs this year, where, like you said, you were kind of waiting until the last minute to know when the Bandits were going to play, and then they end up playing at an awkward Monday at 2 p.m. out in Colorado, and like that just doesn't seem like a championship time slot, and that felt very awkward. I know it was a holiday, and some people were able to get off. Other people, you're probably calling in sick just to watch that game, and it was just a very weird time slot for such a big championship game. So I think a lot of it comes down to just scheduling in general and getting priority in these areas. And I think that the way that you want the playoffs to go back to would be okay if your season starts in December and is consistent throughout the entire year, and you can start playoffs a little sooner. And honestly, I actually liked the way they did it with Toronto, where it was that back-to-back. I thought that was a lot of fun, not to get any rest and just kind of have those teams immediately back in each other's faces the next day. So everything that just happened in the game the night before is extremely fresh in everybody's mind. And then those two teams are thrown right back at each other the next night. I thought that system was a lot of fun. I didn't really like the idea of the Saturday game, travel day, then play Monday. I mean, I thought, like, if you're going to play back-to-back, I want it to be truly back-to-back. I understand, obviously, they have to travel. It's not really maybe West Coast thing. So maybe I wouldn't mind that, I guess, thinking out loud, if they did at least the East and the West division finals, if they did those as back-to-back games, but then maybe the championship series, you go back to 1-1-1. I wouldn't mind something like that to kind of move playoffs along, but at the same time, spread it out and get a little bit more back to normal. So I wouldn't mind a compromise with something like that.
So Phil, my number 2 here, and I think we've been talking about this one, should come as no surprise, and I'd be shocked if it wasn't on your list. My number 2 is fix the stat page. And this has been an issue since coming out of COVID, the lost year, and probably even before that. Back-to-back seasons before the season even kicks off, all of the previous year's stats just disappear. And I understand that in the offseason, they switch stat providers. We gain that. It's a true thing. We found out it's 100% accurate. They switch stat providers from last season to this season. But Phil, there's the same message on players' profiles that has been there all year long. Stay tuned. More stats are going to be coming soon. If you actually want to be taken seriously as a league, this is one of the smallest things you can actually do right. I mean, how many times did we come on here to record and, oh, wow, I can't even access the last game that just happened yesterday. None of the numbers pop up. I don't know how many times. Just navigating the site is so difficult. I can understand why some of these fans just don't know what's going on, because just to figure out some of the normal things, you have to go to this thing and then this thing and then this thing, and that'll make it work. The whole website needs to be redesigned, reconfigured. That whoever the stat provider this year, maybe they have to switch it again because they're not very good. What I had to do was I copied every single player's stats, every single stat on that page, and brought it over to my own site So when this happens, and I'm not even saying if it happens, I know it's going to happen again, in the offseason, all those numbers and stats disappear. At least we, for a podcast, still have it, so we're not going to be in the dark. I don't know how some of these commentators and some of these play-by-play guys did it in game one, because I don't know where all the numbers came from, but it's just the smallest things that you can do right. And this is one of my top two things that I'm going to fix as or commissioner of the day here is I'm going to get that right. I'm going to get it fixed and be taken more seriously as a sports league.
I'm surprised with how much we deal with this as a podcast, and you specifically with all these stats. It's not number one. I'm interested to see what your number one is at this point. But yes, stats would be great. And like you said, one of the, very bare minimum things you're looking for as in an organization or just as a sport to try to follow. And even you and I have struggled. I think lacrosse as a whole seems to not really have a lot of stats. I mean, you and I have tried to dig into players past before and find out if a guy's a lefty or a righty, and they just have no information on past teams as to what that player did. There's no stats. There's no nothing. It's very strange sometimes trying to find out information on lacrosse players. It doesn't seem to be as readily available as any other sport, which is just, again, strange in general. But yeah, stats would be great. And even adding some stats, like you said, block shots were a big thing this year, but we don't know how accurate it was. Caused turnovers at some points and loose balls at some point. They were just all over the place. They didn't exist. Then all of a sudden they had a ton or none. And it was just very weirdly handled. And last year, before all this happened, they used to have the official box score, which was really great to look at, that had the attendance of everything, had everybody's stats right there. It came straight from the league, came straight from that game, was available the second the game was done for the most part, and it was just all the stats were there, just a separate link, click on it. Everything was in black and white. Sure, it didn't look as, fancy and flashy as the stats you see normally when you just pull up the game log for that game and look at it, and then sometimes they have, the stats leaders and everything. That stuff's obviously not there, but you get to see what they did in the arena and what that looked like, and all the official stats were just right there in black and white and pretty much their game card format where you can just click on box score. Everything that we wanted was there. That was gone all year, and I don't understand at the very bare minimum why that went away. I mean, it seemed like a very easy tool for us to use when kind of the other stats took a little bit longer to upload onto the fancy website, that, you had this very simple stat page that they used at the game, and they just had it inputted and uploaded, and boom, there you go, away you went. Don't know why that went away. That would be a really big thing to bring back as well while they're kind of transitioning things over. That would have been very nice to have as a bare minimum as well, because it had all the accurate stats that they had for the game without any stat corrections that maybe have happened later, but it was all right there and literally black and white and looked great. So yeah, stats would be nice.
So Phil, that was my number two. My number one here, and I don't think it's going to come as much of a surprise, I would like to make contract lengths available to the public, including RFA and UFA non-tagged status is available. They did a pretty good job last year of saying who was in RFA and the UFA last year. I think it'll help grow the game. And all of the main sports have that kind of stuff out there. They break down, this player signed this contract. I don't care about the money at all. Like if you want to keep that stuff private, whatever. I don't care how much individual players are making. I just want to know like a blueprint. Hey, if this player is on the practice squad at the end of the year, they become a UFA. Hey, if this player has been in this league this long, you are an RFA status. If the player is over this amount of age or whatever, it's a UFA status. It shouldn't be this difficult to get this kind of information. I have to keep 15 different spreadsheets for teams and then track it on the transition page, which, mind you, sometimes they just exclude some of the signings and some of the notes on there. It just doesn't exist. They leave it off there. Like I said, I don't care about the cash. I don't care about the money, whatever. I just want more transparency when it comes to contract lengths. I think it'll allow shows like us, fans out there that follow the sport, crazy like we do, to help build teams. Like, are there any normal fans out there right now for the Buffalo Bandits besides maybe a handful of them, and we're included in this, that actually know what players need to be re-signed, what players are on a 2-year deal, what players are UFAs and RFAs? I doubt it. I would highly doubt that there's more than 10 Buffalo Bandits fans out there that actually know who's still under contract, who needs a new deal, whatnot, because it's just not available. And before the season, when they signed the CBA, there was talk that they were going to make that part of it available. I think, just imagine, what do we do just for fun with hockey? We see, okay, this player's a UFA, this player's a UFA, this player's an RFA. These are all the players that are going to be free agents in this offseason. And you build your own team. How is that not a big, giant thing up in the sky that, the commissioners or the players or whatever sees that and goes, this might help grow the sport a little bit if the fans have a little bit more fun and a little bit more access to all this and just go, hey, Dane Dobie's a free agent. What if I put him on Calgary? Curtis Dixon just signed a 2-year deal with San Diego, so he's off the board. Man, Vince actually needs a new deal. What happens if he goes and plays with Halifax? Just make it more available. Even if there's a secondary website, and there was one that started and it kind of went away, maybe we have to be it, Phil. Maybe we have to do it. But just be more transparent and put that information out there. Again, who cares how much the players are making? I know the players care how much they're making, but I honestly don't care how much they're making whatsoever. I just want to know how long's your deal? Are you an RFA? Are you a UFA? I don't think that's asking for too much, and I've been pleading and begging and crying for the league and the teams to do this for 2 straight years. I think I'm going to do a whole nother offseason because I doubt anything's going to change with this. But if you make me commissioner for a day, that will change.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's also, like you were mentioning, it's not a shot at the fans by any means, saying that there's only 10 that might know. It's because that information is just not readily available and is very hard to find. You have to do a lot of digging in order to get it. So not a shot at the fans by any means. It's just not really available. Like you said, I mean, how often do you and I believe it's what, Cap Geek or Cap Space?
Cap Friendly?
Cap Friendly. I don't know why I always call it
Cap Friendly for hockey and
Cap
Spot Track
hockey.
for NFL.
Yeah, that we go to all the time to look at contracts. I mean, we probably go there a little bit more than we should because it's kind of fun to look at what's going on with the future. But at the same time, we would do the same thing for the Bandits if it was out there. And on top of all of that, knowing it, like you said, building the team and just kind of knowing what you have upcoming, what you need to worry about, what free agents are going to be available for the offseason, who might be able to come here, who might be leaving. And at the same time, understanding how all of it worked would be great. Like you said, yep. I mean, on the practice squad for this amount of time, then that means they're a free agent or any number of these ridiculous lists that we have yet to really understand. And there's practice players, injured reserve, PUP, protected player list, holdout list. Like, what does all of this mean? How long can a player be on this? I mean, the Bandits have had Justin Gutterding protected for 2 years now, and we've never even seen him suit up for their team. I don't know what the heck that means other than he's got a sweet goldfish. But other than that, we don't know what the heck that means. Physically unable to perform. How long can you be on that? Injured reserve. How does that work in general would be great to know. Can they be, is it 1 game, 2 games? I think we got a little bit more clarity with that this time, especially for playoffs, because everyone was freaking out about Josh Byrne, rightfully so. So we got a little bit more information on how injured reserve worked a little bit. But even the holdout list, we got 4 guys on that list that I would have loved to see play this year, some of them, and we have no idea what that means for next year. Are they still on the holdout list? Do they immediately go away next season? Can you only be on the holdout list for 1 year, and then you have to, re-sign them to either active or holdout again? Just understanding how just a basic breakdown of what each of these lists actually mean to the team, how they work as far as fluidity going from active roster to all these different lists, and like you said, just basic information of RFA, UFA, how many years. Like you said, the money doesn't matter, just what the contract status is what matters, and not just for the Bandits. It'd be great to see it for all the teams to, like you said, kind of mess around with things, see, what players could be moving around, what players need to be re-signed, who's available as a potential free agent in the offseason, all these kinds of things. And it's stuff that we do with the Sabres all the time because that information's out there. The Bills, we do it quite a bit just to kind of look at how they're going to restructure things, even though you and I both know that the cap space over there doesn't really exist and it's a fake number.
It's made up. It's like the U.S. currency. It's made up.
It's all made up. But just kind of even just looking at it, though, is interesting to see, how many years that this player might have before he gets restructured for 16 more years and whatever the heck happens. But just another thing, like you mentioned, to kind of similarly go along with the stat page, something that would just be nice as far as league information goes and really bringing the fans a little bit closer to understanding the league and just being a little bit closer to the league. When you have that kind of information, you feel more a part of the league as a whole, and it makes you feel a little bit more included and less on the outside as far as, like you said, stats and kind of knowing that information. You just feel closer and more a part of the league when you have that information. You can kind of mess around with things if you want and, look at what other teams might be doing, and just brings you, just again, a little bit closer to the league as a whole.
Yeah, this offseason, I think I'm going to make it my duty to try to find out the ins and outs, because I know it's out there. I know some people up in the higher circles of the media than us, because we're still this small little podcast in Buffalo. I like to refer to us as a small, even if we hit it big, I'm just going to say we're the small little podcast in Buffalo, because it's fun being a little underdog. We're your type of wide receiver out here, Phil. The 5th, 6th, 7th.
We are the
on
backup
the depth chart,
goalie.
Yeah, we're the backup goalie, the third string goalie.
The starter.
Fighting to get up there. But yeah, I'm going to make it my duty to try to find out this information, so maybe we can be the voice out there putting out that information that's at least accurate. So I want to make sure we're accurate before we put anything out. But Phil, I got some honorable mentions. I don't know if there was anything else on your top 5 that we didn't talk about, though.
I have also pretty much honorable mentions. I think a lot of ours were, again, adjacent to each other of what we were kind of looking at. But right. Honorable mentions, streaming, I think took a humongous step forward this year with ESPN. I think it got a lot better. I think there's still some general on video hiccups every once in a while that you just kind of see that just can't happen. I know, again, you're a smaller league, so you're the
score and the time clock and the power play time and all that kind of stuff. Those minor details.
And even just like coming back from a commercial early when you're still, when the people, the hosts think that they're not on camera, and all of a sudden you cut to them and they're on camera, just little things like that obviously I'm sure they understand is, a big deal, and the intern that hit that button early obviously doesn't feel good about it. So I'm not trying to knock anyone down. They understand, that it's not a good look for them either. I'm sure they are not happy about it as well. I don't think they just kind of, blow it off or anything, but just tightening things like that up. I think continuing the outdoor series would be great. Doesn't necessarily need to come to Buffalo right away or anything. I hope it does at some point a little bit, toward the end of their season. I think it'd be a little weird at the same time, but even if Buffalo goes and plays someone in the West where it's nice and warm or whatever, but just continuing that outdoor series in general, I think it was a really good start this year, getting that game out there. It was really cool to look at. I mean, we weren't a part of it, but I still sat down and watched it for a while, and it was really fun, and it looked like the players had a lot of fun having an outdoor-indoor game. So just continuing that series, it was a really unique thing to bring to the game, and I think it went really well. And then the last one I had, which you and I asked for last year, was during the draft, having a video draft live stream analysis by the people that understand what these draft picks are, that a lot of people, especially just fans in general, that, lacrosse is a lot of coming out of college. And if you don't follow these players in their summer leagues and their college leagues, it's not quite as readily available, like I mentioned before, as far as stats and things go, as to, the player that you just got, the player that your team might be looking for. So having the draft while it's actively going, being analyzed by people that know what they're talking about, that can break down, who's available for your team when they're on the clock and what they might be looking for. And even the player that they just drafted, who the heck is it? What's it mean? Are they going back to college for another year? Are they going to be fighting for a roster spot right away? Where might they fit? What are they good at? So just having the people in the media like Ted Jenner who know all these things and understand what we're looking at as far as players in the draft and what these players, can maybe add to the Bandits or whoever. I think it would be really cool having a NFL style draft where you're watching it live with analysis who actually understand what's going on a little bit more than the average fan. You can kind of follow along and see what players are maybe best available. I know Stamper from IL Indoor already had a mock draft. So, I mean, having a person like that have their best available list out there while the draft's going on, kind of seeing, what your team might be looking for, goalie, defense, forward, whatever, just your basic draft day coverage, I think would be a really cool thing to add to the NLL and really, again, just bring the fans a little bit closer to feeling like they're a part of the league and just a little bit closer to the league.
I love all three of those, Phil. They were all on my honorable mentions. I got a couple more, though. More primetime games. Games 1 and 2 were on ESPN2, and then games 3 you had to put that on ESPN News. So I would like to, or ESPNU, I think it was. I would like more primetime games. Maybe see if you can get on ABC as well. I know PLL is big on getting some of those primetime games. It would be nice to see NLL on them a bit more. This one's probably more down the road because I don't see it happening anytime soon. Expand the league by one more Western Coast team, so you got 8 and 8, 16 total. Next one, expand the season by 2 weeks. I should say games played, so you move from 18 games played to 20, and that one's probably down the road as well. I think it all comes down to money, Phil. I think that's what we figured out in all this is you generate more money, there's more things you can do with it. And then the last one, this is a dream down the road. Playoff structure, make it 1-3-5. So it's similar to what it is now, but the finals would be a 5-game set instead of a 3. Imagine, and I understand that the Bandits, would have been up 2-1 in that series, and I don't really know the makeup. Maybe you go 2-3, maybe you go 1-1-1-1-1-1, and maybe you go 2-2-1, whatever you're going to be. But imagine a 5-game set between Colorado and Buffalo. Just being an outsider in that one would be must-see television.
Yeah, I was going to say a 5-game set between Buffalo and Toronto, but that you still wanted that 3 games, so that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, eventually I probably want it 5-7-7.
Oh boy!
But that is full-time players, and up to like a 41-game series, and Thursday games, and that's down the road. That's we can't do that in one day as your commissioner.
When the refs are robots at that point.
Yeah, 100%. We're getting that way in baseball.
I know. That was actually before I go on that side tangent, I'll do that in a second. But I also had more eyes on streaming, like you mentioned, just getting some of those bigger games, especially the championship, on a little bit more of national, or trying to get them on ESPN2 or ESPN, like you said, ABC. It was very weird to see Game 3, the biggest game of the entire year, not make it to at least ESPN2 when the other ones did. So completely agree with that. That was another one I had. But side note was during the Bison's game that the Bandits were a part of for their celebration, they had the umps calling balls and strikes were the robots for that game, and it was just computer. It went really quick for the most part. I had to leave early because I had to work that night, but the game was moving along really well between the pitch count and the robot umps. It was weird because the ump that was back there would still call balls and strikes like physically. He would, say ball or strike or make the motion. So I'm not 100% sure how that all works. I would assume he gets some kind of notification as to what the computer said it was, and then he makes the call. But it was weird in a way because the ump back there's not making those calls and it's being done digitally, and just felt kind of strange. But at the same time, it seemed to move things along really well, and I didn't see any complaints from either manager, because it's pretty hard to complain with balls and strikes coming from a digital computer because they're pretty accurate. So it was weird, but at the same time, it seemed to be going really well, and honestly, the game seemed to be flowing along very quickly. So I don't know. It seemed, again, very strange to be a part of, but at the same time, seems to be a step in the right direction, even if it's a little uncomfortable and weird.
Yeah, there's probably a buzzer, something in his ear that's telling him. But yeah, I'm fully on board of making baseball games quicker, just because it's a younger audience or you're trying to gain a younger audience who has a shorter attention span than the older. I think they did a breakdown a couple years ago that baseball has the average oldest age fan group of all the sports. So that's what I would go with. But is there anything else you want to add to this show before we shut it down and go on a relaxing vacation / company retreat?
Other than the fact that I would like to, and I'm also scared to tag Brett Fruit in this.
I'm tagging
this think tank that we had with him, even though he wasn't here.
Yeah, send me the money. I'm tagging him.
All right, and then we'll be shut down effectively.
So on our next show, stay tuned because we're going to be talking about some more sports, and that's the only hint I'm going to give you this week because we're still working on the
about as vague in
blueprints.
general as it possibly gets.
That's what I'm trying to do. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow along with us on Facebook and Instagram at Buffalo Sports Collective and on Twitter, Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.